It is Friday, September 6th, 2024. Wow. Welcome. Boy, oh boy. What is there to say today? Oh, the white balance is off. I didn't fix it. This is always happens, chat. I have this beautiful camera that Vio got me that I need to get a lens for and get a mount for and get a capture card for, you know. Stuff that'll take me a couple days to do if I actually sit down and do it. But I'm moving again soon, so you know I didn't want to invest in a bunch of that I would have to then immediately take down and move. The old $50 camera I got 5 years ago is still going strong. But the problem with it is every single stream you have to refix it. All the settings are lost and the auto settings don't work. All right, well let's get into this. This is a story I wanted to start off with, which is like Netanyahu says, Biden lied. I never agreed to a ceasefire. This is one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen in my entire life. This lie about how it was Hamas that was keeping the war going. This is one of the most pathetic things. Okay. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Netanyahu humiliating Biden again. Okay, yeah, right before I fell asleep, I tweeted this. There is a strong argument that Joe Biden is the weakest president this country has had since James Buchanan. Dropping out of contention for re-election isn't enough. He should resign. Why did I say that? For 6 months, Biden has been like, oh yeah, Israel agreed to a ceasefire. It's on to Hamas.
So Hamas is not there with a deal. There's not a deal in the making, unfortunately, and that still hasn't happened. They want to reconstitute their terror kingdom, and unfortunately it's not close, but we'll do everything we can to get them to the point where they do make a deal, and at the same time we prevent Iran from resupplying Gaza as this great terror enclave right next to Tel Aviv, right next to our major cities.
Mr. Prime Minister, what do you say to critics who say that you're extending this conflict in order to stay in power? That it's for your political gain for this to go on? What's your reaction to that?
I'm not interested in my political future. I'm interested in my country's future. This war would be over yesterday if Hamas laid down its arms, released all the hostages. It'll be over in 2 seconds. But Hamas is refusing to do that. The obstacle to the end of this war is Hamas. The obstacle to the release of hostages is Hamas. The ones who butchered and are slaying, murdering 6 people in cold blood, riddling them with bullets and then firing bullets into their heads is Hamas. It's not Israel. It's not me. We'll do everything we can to fight these savages, and it's a savagery that not only endangers.
I mean, they're basically calling for the Palestinian people to consent to their own genocide. That's what it comes down to. They're saying the Palestinian people should just commit mass. Now, there were some Jews who advocated for that during the Holocaust. There were some radical pacifists who said that the Jews should just commit mass. Now, that was a dumb fucking thing when they said it fighting the Nazis, and it's certainly a dumb thing saying it against the Zionists.
Here's all democracies. And if we come to the point where, and look, I have red lines. They were set before this massacre, this latest murder, but they become redder. I have areas of flexibility. I've given them to my negotiating team, and I stand by them. But now, to go and make concessions after these murders, it's a license to kill hostages. That's what Hamas will understand. Kill hostages, get concessions. That's just wrong. It's not the right way to do it. And you know,
so Israel has learned starved children spread polio indiscriminately all of Gaza, and you'll get concessions and support from the United States forever and ever and ever. Yo, this motherfucker got ears like Dumbo. Do not insult Dumbo. Do not insult Dumbo, you piece of shit. How dare you?
Governments and leaders have a responsibility to do the right thing. Your heart goes out, and I certainly, my heart was shattered. Our hearts were torn when we saw this. But we also have the responsibility of judgment to do what is important to secure the future of the country. We can't let Iran resupply the terrorists in Gaza. And at the same time, we have to continue to put the pressure on Hamas. That's where the pressure should be directed. So in any case, these are the facts.
And there you have it, chat. Netanyahu is unequivocal about ceasefire and hostage agreement with Hamas. There's not a deal in the making. I mean, how many times does Joe Biden need to be humiliated? Today, an American was murdered by settler terrorists while doing a peaceful protest in the West Bank. I mean, like, at this point, the Democrats cut him off. By the way, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday was clear as he's ever been that he does not believe a ceasefire and hostage deal is likely at Gaza, in sharp rebuke to the Biden administration's insistence it's close at hand. There's not a deal in the making, Netanyahu told Fox News. Unfortunately, it's not close. So, like, what more? Like, what the f- is going on here? His comments stand in stark contrast to the relentlessly hopeful messaging coming from the Biden administration over the past months. And Kamala Harris, you f***ing losers. American activist shot dead during protest in West Bank. The Israeli military has admitted to firing at the demonstrators and has not said if other gunmen were present. So in other words, they just shot them down on the street. Responded with fire toward a main instigator of violent activity who hurled rocks at the forces and posed a threat to them. As people were running away, live fire was shot and shoulder fired directly at the protesters, hitting the American activists in the head from behind and falling to the ground, he said. They were one of the most advanced army in the world. They have weapons from America. It's not an accident. They hit her in the head. That was on purpose. It's not that they shot 100 shots at the same time and she was hit with one. We were all standing still, not moving, just standing there, and they shot her through the head. I mean, people are like, well, if Trump were elected, if Trump were elected, it would be even worse. Guys, listen, please listen to me. Oh, if Trump were elected, it would be even worse. Oh, is that right? The activist deaths comes 9 days after Israel's military launched one of its most expansive operations in the West Bank in years. I mean, listen, look how pathetic this is. On Sunday, President Joe Biden claimed that the parties were on the verge of a deal, and on Wednesday, a senior administration official claimed 90% of the agreement had been completed. That Netanyahu is exactly inaccurate. So, what is going on? Joe Biden, resign the presidency. You are incompetent. We are aware of the tragic death of an American citizen today in the West Bank. We offer our deepest condolences to her family and loved ones. We are urgently gathering more information about the circumstances of her death. And we'll have more to say as we learn more. We have no higher priority than the safety and security of American citizens. Bullshit. I mean, Netanyahu is coming out on Fox News and humiliating Joe Biden, and they're doing nothing about it. These pathetic cucks cannot be allowed to have power. Just some of the most pathetic I've ever seen in my life. Look at these losers.
What is the Pentagon's perspective on the strategic military significance of the Philadelphia corridor?
I think you just mentioned some of the strategic significance of the Philadelphia corridor, but I'd really refer you to the Israelis to speak to that. We know that there are tunnels under that corridor, but ultimately what we want to see here is a ceasefire deal put into place that allows hostages to come home to their families. It's almost been a year now. But I'd refer you to the Israelis to speak more to the significance of that. Fadi.
That knowledge of the existence of tunnels underneath Philadelphia corridor, the Egyptians deny the existence of these tunnels. Can you share more about what you know about these tunnels?
I don't have more to provide other than what, is I mean, I'm not going to be able to do it, unfortunately, an intel assessment from here. I would say, broadly speaking, we know that there are tunnels on that border and in that corridor that have allowed in the past, a movement of weapons shipments into Gaza. Again, what we want to see and what we are focused on, as you know, is bringing home and making sure that we can get into place a ceasefire deal that also allows the hostages to return home.
What does you said broadly? Is this based on recent intelligence or Israeli, sharing information?
Yeah, I wish I could get into more specifics. I just won't be able to get into that from here, but I'm just gonna have to leave it at that.
I'm not asking about the type of intelligence,
yeah.
But when you make such a claim, that there are tunnels underneath the Philadelphia corridor, while Egypt is denying that. I think some explanation is warranted here.
Appreciate the question, Fadi, but I'm just not going to have more. I'd have to refer you to the Egyptians and the Israelis to speak more to that. What I can tell you is what we've seen in the past, but I'm just not going to be able to get into any more details from here.
Can you define when was the last time you?
Yeah, I'm just, unfortunately, Fadi, I know this is not going to be a satisfactory answer for you. I'm just not going to be able to provide more specifics.
I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Like the American government has been totally exposed. And I want you to understand that this is having consequences. Like, Joe Biden has hurt America's reputation to the world more than Donald Trump did. Do you understand that, right? Kirby dismissed the idea that the administration was overly optimistic. Okay, hold on. Let's see that. Asked about Netanyahu's comment, Kirby said, I'm just not going to get a public back and forth through all of you in the press with Prime Minister Netanyahu. It's exactly inaccurate. There's a story, a narrative out there. There's a deal out there. The Israeli prime minister said in the statement from the American official the day prior that basically 9% of this deal has been agreed. On Sunday, when Israel announced that the bodies of 6 hostages have been found and executed by Hamas, Biden still argued the negotiators were on the verge of having an agreement. U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby doubled down on those assessments in the comments on the press Thursday, saying 90% verge of a deal. You call that optimistic? I call that accurate. Asked about Netanyahu's comments, Kirby said, blah, blah, blah. I will just say that the process has at times been cumbersome. We've faced setbacks and more setbacks. And without question, we here in the administration are frustrated that we still haven't been able to conclude this deal, he said. There's lots of reasons for that. Okay, does anyone have this clip of Kirby? Because I don't want to read what this dipshit says. The first war goal was to destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities. The second was to free our hostages. Wait, governing capabilities? Like, how is that? How is that a legitimate war aim? I'm going to destroy the civilian government? That's not a legitimate war aim. Was to free our hostages. And the third was to ensure Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. So this is not possible without killing them all. This is literally a genocidal statement because I don't know how to explain this, chat, but every other human being represents a threat to every other human being. Okay? Like, that's just the way it is. That's called living on this planet as a human being. We're relatively fragile. All three of these goals go through Israel's control of the Philadelphia corridor. The emphasis on Philadelphia in Netanyahu's recent public statements hasn't been constructive, the official said. On Thursday, Netanyahu claimed Hamas didn't agree to anything, not to the Philadelphia corridor, not to the keys of exchanging hostages for jailed terrorists, not to anything. That's just a false narrative. Hamas on Thursday said Netanyahu has used evasions and deceptive maneuvers to avoid reaching an agreement on a ceasefire in Gaza. Netanyahu is facing mounting accusations that from Israelis, by the way. This is not from peace activists. What? Oh my God!
Is not allowed to use.
Is Kirby
Nobody
here?
better than Joe.
Fair elections in India.
Democratic institutions.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, John. Getting back to the Middle East, the president on February the 26th said, "My hope is by next Monday we will have a ceasefire." On Saturday evening, just past, he said, "We are on the verge of having an agreement." And it was on Monday morning when he was asked whether Prime Minister Netanyahu was doing enough to reach a deal, he replied no. Why did it take him more than 6 months to reach that conclusion?
Conclusion? What conclusion?
That Prime Minister Netanyahu isn't doing enough to get a ceasefire.
The president wants this ceasefire. The president knows.
So I don't know what's worse. I don't know what's worse, Chad. I don't know what's worse. I don't know what's worse. I legitimately don't know what's worse. Either he's incompetent or he's weak. Those are the only choices. If you're a supporter of Joe Biden, you have to either say he's weak or he's stupid. Now, most liberals would rather be weak than stupid, so they always run to that. Like, if you ever have a conversation with a liberal, the very first thing they want you to know is that the Democrats can't do anything, okay? They have a conclusion. The Democrats are doing everything they can. And if they aren't doing something, if it seems like they should be doing something differently, it's because they're not able to. Okay? That's every single liberal. All right? No liberal believes that the Democrats could be doing more, but are not doing more. Okay. Every single liberal believes that every single Democratic president has always done the most that they could do to advance progress. Now, this is a mental delusion that no amount of evidence or facts will ever change their mind. This is something that it took me extremely long time to figure out. Like, I figured this out this year, is that some liberals just believe that Democrats are good, therefore everything that can be done is being done. This belief is not based on anything but vibes. It's why they're a Democrat for the most part. Democrats believe that all the Democrats are doing everything they can. It doesn't matter if it's not true, which it isn't. If you've ever studied at all, you know it's not true. But that delusion is the core belief of literally tens of millions of people. And it's unassailable. It's unaffectable by evidence. Now, right here, if you talk to a liberal about Gaza right now and Netanyahu and what's going on, they will tell you, number one, that Joe Biden is doing everything he can. Now, if you say, okay, well, he could not give Israel weapons, they short circuit. Their brain short circuits. And they say, well, Israel doesn't need U.S. weapons to do the war. This is how the conversation always goes, which is like, well, Israel doesn't need the U.S. weapons. Israel exports weapons. Israel is a weapons exporter. It's part of their economy. They don't need the U.S. weapons. Now, that is bullshit. That's obviously false. Why is that false? Because every single, I think it's 70% of weapons that Israel uses comes from abroad. It is like stuff, and it's this stuff as basic as ammunition, bombs, the Iron Dome rockets for those defense. Israel cannot do what it does without American support. From small arms to the most advanced arms, Israel is completely dependent on the U.S. Number one, for the physical production of the weapons, and two, for the financing of the weapons. Israel doesn't have an economy big enough to have the military that it has. Do you understand that? They're being subsidized by the United States. They couldn't have the military they have without U.S. support. I didn't even see this story. This is incredible. Netanyahu tells ministers he prioritizes Philadelphia over hostages. Horrifying gallant. I mean, this is insane. This is insane. What do you even say to this? What do you even say about this? This is one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen in my entire life. Joe Biden is a loser. He's going to go down in history as a war criminal. He's going to go down as a fucking war criminal. And I hope, you know what I'm looking for, chat? And this is one of the things. So anyway, Joe Biden's kid pled guilty to all these crimes today. I hope Joe Biden is convinced not to pardon him. I hope his son goes to prison for the rest of his life. And Joe Biden is such a weak loser. I bet he could be persuaded not to pardon his own son. That's my dream. I hope his son suffers in prison. I hope the prison guards are all Trumples, all MAGA guys. That's my most fervent wish. We were talking about Netanyahu. All right, let's keep going. The Israeli newspaper Yedioth Ahronoth, citing a document it obtained, reported that Netanyahu in July effectively spiked a draft of hostage and ceasefire deal by introducing a raft of new 11th hour demands. Oh, hey, wait a minute. We talked about this then. It's almost as if, and I don't know how to say this, chat. I legitimately don't know how to say this. Hassan and I are better at covering of this than any mainstream media you're ever going to see. It is absolutely pathetic how I mean, it's not pathetic. It's knowing propaganda. They're doing you obviously want to say hey, Dana Bash is an idiot and Wolf Blitzer is a moron. No, they're not morons. They're just liars. And they're depending upon your laziness and fear to prevent you from telling the truth. Several news outlets, including CNN, have reported on the late July demands made by Netanyahu, but this is the first time the Israeli document has been obtained in full. In the Fox News interview, Netanyahu rejected allegations that he has obstructed a deal. The obstacle to the end of this war is Hamas. The obstacle to the release of the hostages is Hamas. The ones who butchered it in a sling, murdering 6 people in cold blood, littering them with bullets, and then firing bullets into their heads is Hamas. It's not Israel. It's not me. I don't know, he said. I don't judge the families. They're going through enormous anguish. In an interview with CNN's Caitlin Collins on Thursday evening, Israeli Ambassador Danny Danon was asked why Netanyahu's latest comments contrast with the more optimistic pronouncements from the White House. We want to lower expectations, he said. In May, the U.S. proposed a deal, and we said yes. Hamas said no, Danon said, adding the same happened in August, contradicting the reported Yadolov and Adronoth and others. Israel was continuing to send its intelligence head and other officials to negotiations, Danon argued. Every time we get closer to reaching an agreement, Hamas will come up with another excuse why not to sign the agreement, he said. So this is just a lie. This is just a blatant lie. Man, Israel really is the best ally. Slick Rick, thank you for the prime.
To get this ceasefire, it requires leadership. It requires compromise. And it requires a common understanding of exactly how this ceasefire is going to benefit the people of Israel and the people of Gaza. And there are substantial things in here for the people of Gaza. But if you're asking me to apologize or issue some sort of regret because we want to get caught trying, because we want to see it over the finish line, because there are times when we've been optimistic that we can get there, only to learn that we couldn't, I ain't going to do it. There is nothing wrong with continuing to try to achieve this incredibly difficult negotiation and this outcome, a ceasefire that, again, would visit terrific benefits all around, including in the region. And so have there been times when we've been stymied? Yes. Have there been times when we thought we were close and turned out that we weren't as close as we thought? Absolutely. And you know what? Today might be one of those days. Even today, I told the gaps are, we can narrow them. And today might be one of those days that maybe I'll prove to be wrong. But no apologies for trying. No apologies for keeping the shoulder to the wheel.
But the issue isn't apologies for trying. The issue is, does the administration have a realistic view of Prime Minister Netanyahu's willingness to make peace?
I think we know Prime Minister Netanyahu pretty well. Nobody better than Joe Biden.
Sincere about
I've
that
answered the question.
We know him, so you're not trying to get a deal, you're just lying then.
Earlier this month, Vietnam's president traveled to China and met with their president. We're hearing that Vietnam's president could meet with Biden on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly later this month. Can you confirm this meeting or just comment on the significance of such a meeting given the state of...
Which meeting? The meeting between President Xi and the president of Vietnam, or a potential one between President Biden?
A potential one between the U.S. and Vietnam.
I don't have a schedule for the UN General Assembly to speak to today. As you know, when the president goes up to New York for the General Assembly, not only does he deliver remarks, but he does conduct a series of bilateral discussions. We'll have a much more robust agenda to speak to as we get a little closer to that. But look, on Vietnam, I mean, as you saw, the president upgraded our relationship with Vietnam to a full strategic partnership. That's a big deal. And we know that Vietnam values the relationship with the United States. But they're also a neighbor of China. They live in the neighborhood. And of course, every nation's leader there has to determine for themselves what that bilateral relationship with China is going to look like. We respect that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. First, thank you. First on Russia, this is the type of activity that's been going on for the better part of a decade. And this
you mean the election interference?
Yeah, and the usage of particularly social media profiles to report false accounts and false narratives. And I'm wondering what role you think the companies and the platforms play in allowing these accounts to proliferate.
These are private companies, and certainly they have to make their own decisions.
Man, they want to ban me and Hassan so bad.
It's not about, we're obviously are respectful of freedom of speech, and certainly the respectful of the private decisions that these companies' leaders have to make. But we do think it's important. And today's actions and the way
they're not going to ban TikTok till after the election, guys. And then after, it depends on if the genocide's still going on and people are mad about it again, which they will be.
Laid it out is important to expose it, to disclose it. And it's why, in my opening statement, I also urge the American people to be mindful of what's out there, because these fake social media personas and disinformation in cyberspace is incredibly difficult to shut down. So yes, we believe tech companies need to be aware of these activities. We believe, and they have taken action in the past to shut down accounts that have violated their own policies and procedures. We encourage that as well. But it also is the consumers too. The reader, the viewer, they have responsibilities as well to make sure that they're getting the best possible, most accurate information. And you're not always going to get it just in an online format.
And on the Middle East, the Justice Department also unsealed charges against Hamas leaders for the actions of October 7th. The charges were dated back in February, but one of the Hamas leaders that was named is currently located in Doha. And I'm wondering if the U.S. is pressing Qatar to have that leader extradited or arrested.
I don't have any law enforcement activity to speak to about that today.
Is there any impact that you think unsealing these charges from February will have on the negotiations where they stand right now? Why unseal them today?
Well, again, I'd refer you to the Justice Department for the decision to why unseal them. As you rightly said, that the indictments actually date way back. So that I let the Justice Department speak to the decision about unsealing it. As for an effect on the discussions,
banning TikTok will make people unemployed. That's a lot of businesses that use that. Do you think they care? Do you think they care? It's more important to control the narrative and shut down left-wing commentary than your job, freedom of speech, or any other principle. The purpose of the United States government is to destroy the left. I know many people have a hard time understanding this because of COPE, but that's the reality.
It was important to unseal those. It was important to make that known. The
only way the United States has ever respected anyone on the left is it when they're strong. That's it. If they have the ability to take away your rights, coup your government, whatever, they will.
We're holding these Hamas leaders accountable. At the same time, we continue, as I said to Amr, having active discussions about the ceasefire deal. We still believe we can get there.
What about Al Jazeera in the back? Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Very quickly, John.
Sorry, man.
I appreciate it. What pressure is the United States putting on Hamas and Netanyahu to close this deal?
I'm sorry, say again. What pressure we're putting on?
What pressure is the United States putting on Hamas and Netanyahu to close this deal?
It's not just about twisting arms and putting pressure. It is about having active, what we hope to be constructive conversations about negotiating the final details. And that's really where we are. And in any negotiation, when you get down to the brass tacks, that's when the horse trading really begins, and that's where it gets difficult, and that's where we are right now. It's really about trying to get both sides to yes here. And again, I can't negotiate the details in public with you. But, I heard a question asked yesterday in here about, why we're only pressuring one side and not the other. And I tell you what, it was a question about, how only the prime minister is feeling the heat. And I'll tell you, if you're Mr. Sinwar, he's buried in a tunnel somewhere. He ain't coming.
Wait, are they really implying? Is he really trying to say they're pressuring Netanyahu? Is that what he's trying to say? Yes, sir. How much money do you want, sir? Which weapon systems do you want, sir? How many aircraft carriers and Marines can we send, sir? Would you like more special operations troops, sir? What are you talking about? You're his butler.
Coming up for air too much.
You have absolutely no idea what Sinwar is doing because Israel cannot take control of a territory 6 miles wide after a year. Like, Israel is incapable of stopping Hamas, a 6-mile wide strip that they have completely flattened after a year. What the f are you talking about? And that's with U.S. help. You guys are the weakest paper tigers on the planet. The Houthis they're spinning on your
have been decimated. His resources have dried up. The people he claimed to be protecting and defending are living in deplorable conditions because of the war that he started on the 7th of October. So I don't buy this notion that there's no pressure being put on Hamas or Hamas leadership. And the indictments that were unsealed yesterday, I think, prove that as well. So,
thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. I do have... Sorry, guys, have your patience for a second. All right, I do have one more thing before we get going here.
So lastly, today is a day of mixed emotions for us in the press office as we say goodbye to Christine Thompson, who's...
Okay, we're not watching any more of this. Shut your fucking mouth. These fucking losers, dude.